This episode of McGibblets Fantasy Football Update is brought to you by White Claw. Because you know what they say, no laws when you're drinking claws. Welcome everyone to another commissioner update for McGibblets Fantasy Football League. We have a doozy of an update for you this week as we have a couple weeks to catch you up on. So we're going to dive into all of the action that's taken place over the last couple of weeks in McGibblets Fantasy Football League. Out of Austin, Texas, I'm Andrew, Mr. Marbles Chambers, and I'm joined, as always, by Raleigh's own Ethan Sub Rosa Comeback Tour Cook. E, happy to have you with me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Andrew.
So this week, it's going to cover a couple of weeks since we haven't come to you in a while. But before we jump into all of that, we're going to turn the clock back about a week or so to when I made a trip to North Carolina and got to sit down with my co-commissioner, Ethan Cook, in person. Let's take a look and see how that went. Welcome, everyone, to our Week 5 recap for McGibblets Fantasy Football League. We've got a great episode this time coming at you with an incredibly special guest, me. That's right, I'm here in person, live out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Andrew, Mr. Marbles Chambers. I'm joined by my co-commissioner, Ethan Sub Rosa Comeback Tour Cook. E, excited to be with you in person here.
You know what? You are in my territory now. It's a pleasure to have you, but just watch out when we have to meet with the rest of the league later on. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into last week's action because it was a doozy. So last week I wasn't here in person, I wasn't in the video, but E, you pointed out a couple of the key matchups that we wanted to take a look at. What was one of the matchups that you really enjoyed watching this past weekend?
Absolutely, there were two main ones that we're looking at right off the bat, and I'm going to have to say it. Both of them were pretty nail-biters through in and throughout. However, at the end, there were decisive winners and decisive victories that took one team from maybe third place up to first place, not mentioning any names, that was me. But other than that, actually one of the ones that really stood out was Andrew's team, Mr. Marbles, versus Tim's swell team, Emma Ingram or McCaffrey Schlong. Not really know where we're going to go with this from here on out. However, Andrew, that was a absolute battle of elite running backs.
That it was. It was, we had some incredible performances. Really, we thought it was going to be a really one-sided game when Christian McCaffrey decided he wanted to go ham last week. Christian McCaffrey put up, what, it was like 44, 45 points, which was enough in any other matchup to put the nail in the coffin, except when I have the secret weapon, Green Bay's own Aaron Jones.
How many touchdowns?
He put up 4 touchdowns. I mean, it was a blast sitting there watching the alerts come in. It was just Aaron Jones rushing touchdowns, Aaron Jones rushing touchdown, Aaron Jones rushing touchdown. And the next thing we knew, our projected points were right there level at each other.
Absolutely. It's a victory of 146 to 145 from Mr. Marbles. Congratulations on that hell of a win. And Tim's swell team, Emma Ingram, McCaffrey Schlong, you can't be mad about it. You just can't be.
Just a tough one to swallow, I'm sure, but it's one you gotta swallow.
Dip it in the water so it'll slide down your gullet more easily.
The other matchup that you were telling us that we wanted to keep an eye on was the one between you and Steve's Dumpster Fire. That game wasn't as close as we were all expecting it to be, but yeah, how close can you keep it when your team puts up 171 points like yours did? I mean, I was going to point out a couple of his key players that really shone, but when that's the entire roster, it doesn't make for a good TV show sort of thing. So, I got to say, it could have even been much worse. He had Will Fuller on his bench. Will Fuller put up 46 points?
Sure did.
That is absolutely incredible. So, normally we talk about missed opportunities on the bench. I don't think much was missed there when you're able to put up 171 points. So, congrats on the solid victory there as well.
Impressive. Very nice.
So one thing that we really wanted to do this week, since we're going to be in person here together, we've been doing a lot of talking about this league as a whole so far and how much fun it's been watching some of these matchups and how competitive it's been so far. E, what are some of the things that you've noticed about this league
and why it's been able to stay as competitive as it is.
Absolutely. You know, it's actually really funny because we do have some randos in the group right now in the league. However, it's just been still fun. So one thing that we touched on a little bit earlier was Joshua coming out to the 3-0, you know. But now when you look at the scores and you look at the matchups already this week, who's playing well, who's not, it's anybody's ball game. Anybody can win this league still. I mean, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I'm in first place. But you know, at the end of this, at the end of this week, you know, it may not be where I'm in that first place or even that second place spot. So we're just going to have to see. It's any man's game at this point.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, even if you just watch week after week, you'll have guys put up 170 points one week, and then the following week just lay a complete goose egg. So you know, it's definitely cool to see some of these teams that week after week, it's really anybody's game, and the projections truly just don't matter at all. I mean, even last week between myself and Tim, that projection, he was expected to just crush me, and even halfway through the day, it wasn't even going to be any close. But having players that are able to put up that kind of score at any time really opens the door for any sort of possibility on any of these games, any of these matchups. So I share the same idea that it's going to be a really close fighting season this season leading into the playoffs. And come playoff time, I know we're still quite a ways down the road from there, but I think it's going to be a really tight race coming into there and see who's able to make the playoffs.
Absolutely. And you know what? There's still plenty of time for trades. The deadline is at end of November. So start looking ahead to improve your team. You know, fair trades across the board. You got plenty of time to do it.
Exactly.
So how about that? That was in the middle of the Week 6 matchups. I mean, that was on Sunday afternoon that we recorded that. We've completed Week 6, and we just finished up with Week 7, and we're looking ahead to Week 8 now. I mean, time is flying.
I close my eyes only for a moment, and the moment's gone.
Now, instead of walking through all of the updates and all of the matchups that we've missed over the last couple of weeks, instead, we're just going to pause and take a quick status update on where the league is right now and what the standings are looking like as of today, which is Tuesday after Week 7. So, looking at the standings right now, it's starting to separate a little bit. We're seeing the top pull away a little bit from the very bottom. Still pretty tight, but we're able to see a little bit of distance, a little bit of separation there. Okay, Steve's team, Steve's Dumpster Fire, and Ethan, your team, Sub Rosa Comeback Tour, right now are sitting really tied for number 1 at 5-2. But right behind you, you've got myself, you've got Glenn's team, Stained Wall of Peen, and then you have Shaken Baker up there with us as well, only a game back at 4-3. Below them, you got Brett, who's a game back from us. He's tied right now with Michael's team and Joshua's team at 3-4.
I don't even know who you are.
And then bringing up the rear, we have Tim's swell team, McCaffrey, Schlung, Emmett Ingram, whatever you want to call it, dude, and Dirty Sanchez sitting at 2-5. Now, fun fact, Tim, your team is currently sitting at 2-5, yet you're second in points for.
But it don't matter, no.
Ethan, what's some advice that you would give to some of the teams that are sitting a little bit lower in the standings right now?
Sure, Andrew. You actually bring up a really good point. I know that Joshua's team is continuing to slide. I know we've mentioned him a couple times starting up this season 3-0. McCaffrey Schlong, your team, as Andrew already mentioned, has the most points scored per week. However, you're still bottom of the line. Brett, you as well have also trailed behind a little bit and behind a few teams. You know, my advice to the rest of the league, to just better everybody's team is, is anybody thinking of making more trades? Tim Swell team, McCaffrey Schlong, I know you did a trade a few weeks ago, but, is anybody thinking about more? I think it's really important to the league, and I think it would benefit everybody as long as it's a fair trade.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. I mean, we've seen a lot of action, a lot of activity on the waiver wire right now, but we haven't seen too many trades coming across. I mean, look, this league only has 10 teams, okay? There's a lot of talent currently sitting on people's benches, racking up points, but not doing anything in the actual matchups, okay? I mean, I know, you and I were talking last week about some of the trades that we were trying to look for each other. I mean, I have Melvin Gordon that I'm trying to dump to somebody. You've got AJ Green, who's going to be available very soon, and he's a top tier wide receiver. I mean, these are some of the players that we've got available, and we're just looking for the right buyer to see how we can improve our teams, but also make this league continue to be competitive. Give other teams some of the weapons that they might be lacking right now. And I definitely think that's the sort of thing that we can see with some big, high-profile trades throughout the rest of this season.
I want to break free.
We are officially halfway done with this season, okay? Week 15 and 16 are the playoffs, so we've only got 14 weeks to look at, and we just finished week 7. Looking ahead into week 8 and starting off the second half of our season, what are some of the matchups that you're going to want to watch closely this upcoming week?
Yeah, of course. The hot matchups I'm looking at for this week, are not of you and me for once, but more of the teams at the bottom of the standings. Tim, McCaffrey, Schlong, you're tied for last place right now, but you're top in points, as Andrew already mentioned. But then again, the other matchup I'm looking at is, my former roommate Brett. You're facing one of the topper teams, but just that one win could really put you back in the race for those top 4 playoff spots that we're all reaching for. And speaking of that top 4, I couldn't forget this one matchup though. I'm looking closely at Stained Wall of Peen versus Steve's Dumpster Fire, who currently holds first place. Andrew, do you have any comments on that one?
I couldn't agree with you more. Steve's Dumpster Fire versus Glenn's team versus Stained Wall of Peen. That's going to be the hot matchup of this week, okay? Steve's Dumpster Fire has Ezekiel Elliott, who's currently sitting on bye this week. So we're going to see if they're still able to perform to the same level that he's been able to perform all season without Zeke. Stained Wall of Peen's got a pretty solid lineup as well, with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. Now, we'll want to see if Aaron Rodgers is able to perform as well as he did last week when he ran train on Glenn's bench.
I've been there. But trust me, with a fire inside you, the right partner by your side, you will get back on your game.
That's it, though, for this week's Commissioner Update for McGibblets Fantasy League. We're halfway done with the season again. We're starting off the second half of the season. We're all excited to see how this season's going to close out. We'll continue to come at you with some of these Commissioner Updates. Apologies, they haven't been as regular as we initially intended when we started these updates, but we want to have these coming out to you again throughout the rest of the season to keep everybody informed on exactly how well they're performing and some things that we're all going to want to keep an eye on throughout the rest of the season. I'm Andrew, Mr. Marbles Chambers, coming at you out of Austin, Texas, with Ethan Sub Rosa Comeback Tour Cook. We are your co-commissioners for McGibblets Fantasy League. We'll see you next time. Peace.